All right, so we're diving into Game of Thrones, huh? Specifically, we're going to be looking at some excerpts from the book itself. We'll be focusing on, the Starks, the Lannisters, and yeah, even those hints about dragons that we get.
Dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what's really interesting to me right away is how the author, sets the stage. It's not just your typical medieval world, like we see in a lot of fantasy.
Right.
There's this like underlying sense of dread, this, winter that's coming. It feels like more than just a change of seasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something deeper, something maybe even magical that's shifting the balance of power.
Yeah, it's like it's always there, looming.
Exactly.
So we start with the Starks, the rulers of Winterfell, way up in the north. Their land is all like harsh winters and ancient traditions, and then they find these direwolf pups. And that's not a small thing.
No, no, no. These aren't just like wolves, right? These are like
Yeah.
larger than life, almost mythical creatures.
Yeah.
And they haven't been seen south of the wall for ages.
Right, right.
I think that discovery is really key because the dire wolves, they're more than just pets in this world, right? They're like a symbol, like the Stark family itself.
Yeah.
Powerful, resilient, very connected to the old ways of the North.
Yeah.
And the fact that each Stark child finds a pup, it's almost as if the author is, I don't know, like weaving their fates together right from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. Like you were saying before, that foreboding, it's
Yeah.
all connected, it feels like.
Absolutely.
And speaking of chills, there's the Night's Watch guarding that giant ice wall. They stand between the realm and well, whatever's out there beyond it, and life on the wall doesn't sound fun.
No, it's brutal. Really highlights the contrast. You have the relative comfort of the Seven Kingdoms, and then you have this like brutal reality at the edge of civilization.
Right.
Like the Night's Watch is always there reminding everyone that these petty little power struggles, they don't really matter when there are like existential threats out there lurking in the shadows.
Yeah. And then you have the Lannisters, who are all about power, wealth, ambition, that whole win at all costs thing.
Yeah, exactly. The Lannisters represent a very different kind of power, one driven by individual ambition and ruthlessness.
Ruthless.
Yeah, and so that right away, that sets up the central conflict of the story.
Right.
You have Stark honor versus Lannister ambition, and then the king dies, which just throws everything into chaos.
Oh, yeah.
You've got his brothers, Stannis and Renly, both wanting the throne, and then the Lannisters are scheming to put Joffrey in charge. It's a mess.
A total mess, yeah.
Yeah,
Seems like the author's trying to break down any sense of order that was there.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Forcing the characters to make choices that reveal their true nature.
And Ned Stark, he gets caught in the middle of it all as the Hand of the King. He's honorable, but is that enough in a world like this?
It's a good question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, can honor really survive in a world ruled by power?
Yeah, and on top of all that, there's this huge secret. A secret that could destroy the Seven Kingdoms. Queen Cersei Lannister, she's having an affair, and not just any affair. It's with her own twin brother, Jaime, a Kingsguard knight.
Incest. Forbidden.
Yeah.
Adds a whole other layer to the story.
Yeah,
It raises the stakes.
definitely.
The Lannisters want power so badly, but this secret could be their downfall.
Right, it's like the author's creating this web where every action has these unintended consequences that just ripple out and out.
Exactly, and we haven't even touched upon Daenerys Targaryen, the exiled princess.
Right.
She also has a claim to the throne, and then there are these whispers about dragons coming back into the world.
Which is a lot to take in.
It is. There's so much more to uncover. What stands out to you so far? Like, what's really grabbing you about these early glimpses into this world?
Honestly, it's a lot to process. I mean, we've only just scratched the surface, but I want to know more.
Yeah.
Let's dive deeper, shall we? Let's untangle these secrets and see where these shifting alliances lead.
Absolutely. Let's do it. So we left off with Ned Stark, right? This guy, honorable to a fault, stuck in the middle of all this.
Right, in the lion's den.
Exactly. And he's trying to figure out who killed Jon Arryn, and it's pretty clear the Lannisters are up to something. But the more he digs, the more dangerous it gets.
Well, there's that scene, right, where he's looking through this massive book, the one Jon Arryn was so obsessed with.
Oh, yeah, that book, right. Like a history of all the great houses, their lineages, and all that.
Yeah, and as Ned's going through it, he starts noticing a pattern.
It's like the book itself becomes a character, you know?
It's true.
It represents knowledge, history, how the past can reveal what's happening in the present.
Oh.
And you see these seemingly boring details like birthdays and family trees.
Right.
They become like crucial clues in this deadly puzzle.
Yeah, and it's not just the book. Remember that scene with Bran in the Godswood? He overhears in Jaime and Cersei?
Oh man, that scene.
He's just a kid, and he stumbles onto this huge secret.
That's a turning point for Ned.
Right.
because we already know the secret. But for him, it's like confirmation.
Right.
And he confronts Cersei, actually gives her a chance to run away with her kids before Robert finds out.
Which, I mean, wow. He's putting his honor above his family's safety.
Exactly. And it's a decision that will come back to haunt him.
Oh,
Yeah.
big time.
While all this is happening, we're introduced to Daenerys, the exiled princess, way across the Narrow Sea. She's forced to marry Khal Drogo, this Dothraki warlord. It's a whole different world, and it's brutal.
Yeah, her journey is fascinating, you know. She starts off as a pawn in her brother's game, scared and vulnerable, but she slowly transforms into this strong, capable leader. And it's reflected in that gift she gets, those 3 petrified dragon eggs.
Dragons, right.
Sure.
Like, could they actually come back? It's crazy to think about.
Those eggs, they're like a symbol of potential. You know, a return to the time when the Targaryens ruled with fire and blood.
Yeah.
Daenerys might be the one to unleash that power. So we have this power struggle brewing in the 7 kingdoms. And then, Robb Stark, Ned's son, he calls the Banners of the North to rescue his father and sisters. The fight for the throne is on.
And we see these parallel stories playing out, right? Ned trying to survive the Game of Thrones in King's Landing.
Right.
And Robb, he has to learn how to be a leader, how to fight a war.
Thrown into it way too young.
Exactly. But both of them, they show this commitment to family and honor that sets them apart from the Lannisters.
Yeah, and then it all comes to a head in King's Landing. Ned, betrayed and imprisoned, makes a deal to save his daughters. He confesses to treason, thinking he'll be sent to the Wall and eventually rejoin his family.
It's heartbreaking, you know? He sacrifices his honor to protect his children.
But it doesn't work.
No, Joffrey, that little psychopath, he throws it all away.
He orders Ned's execution. It's like the whole world shifts at that moment.
That act, it destroys any sense of order or stability. It's a declaration of war, not just against the Starks, but against anyone who dares to challenge the Lannisters.
So the Starks are scattered, their future's uncertain. Daenerys, she's just beginning to understand her power, and the world is about to change in a big way. But you mentioned earlier there's another layer to this story, something even bigger than the fight for the throne.
Yeah, those whispers about winter, they're getting louder. The White Walkers, those ancient creatures of ice and death, they're stirring beyond the wall. The reports from the Night's Watch, they're getting more and more dire.
It puts everything else into perspective, doesn't it?
Totally. What good is a throne if the whole world is going to freeze over?
Right. So we have these 3 storylines all happening at the same time. The political maneuvering in the 7 kingdoms, Daenerys rising to power across the sea, and this chilling threat from the north.
And they're all connected. Every decision these characters make, it ripples outwards, affecting not just their own lives, but the fate of the world itself. What's hitting you the hardest so far? What questions are you left with about these characters and what's driving them?
There's so much to unpack. The betrayals, the battles, this looming threat of winter. It's all so intense.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. Take a moment, think about the themes, the choices, the possibilities. We'll be back in a minute to explore the final act of this unfolding saga.
It's pretty clear that ambition and betrayal, they don't come cheap in this world. Even the winners, they end up paying a heavy price.
What's interesting, though, is how in the middle of all this chaos, you see certain characters, they step up, right?
Mhm.
They seize those opportunities, and they adapt and reveal these hidden strengths. Like Robb Stark, for example.
Mm-hmm.
He's barely a man, but he's leading an army against the Lannisters.
And winning.
Yeah, and winning. It's like all those lessons his father taught him about honor and duty, they're actually serving him well on the battlefield.
Yeah, it's not just talk for Robb. He's walking the walk.
And he's got this charisma, right? People are drawn to him, they're loyal to him. But you got to remember, he's surrounded by all these seasoned warriors,
Right.
each with their own agendas. So maintaining control, it's a real challenge for him.
And then there's Jon Snow, Ned's bastard son, up at the Wall. He joined the Night's Watch, but it's not exactly the glorious life he might have imagined.
No, it's a lot of training and chores, you know. Not exactly the intrigue of King's Landing.
It seems like he's always felt like an outsider. And now he's stuck between 2 worlds, never really belonging to either one.
Yeah, he's struggling with his identity. But that sense of displacement, it actually helps him see things others miss. Like when he defends Sam, that recruit who's more comfortable with a book than a sword.
Right, Sam.
Jon sees potential in him that others don't, and he challenges that rigid hierarchy of the Night's Watch.
I guess strength comes in many forms.
Exactly. It's not just about being a warrior.
Yeah.
Jon learns to look beyond the surface, to see the real threats. And I think that's really important for what's to come.
And then there's Daenerys. Talk about a power move. Walking into Khal Drogo's funeral pyre and coming out unharmed with 3 baby dragons, that's a game changer.
Oh, yeah. It's a rebirth, a return of magic to the world. And it puts Daenerys in a whole new position of power. She started as a pawn, but now she's a major player.
Dragons, who would thought? So we have these three stories, each with its own struggles and victories. But taking a step back, what does it all mean? What's the bigger picture here?
Well, you can see this struggle for power happening on all these different levels.
Right.
Individual, family, society. We see characters wrestling with who they are and making choices that affect not only them, but everyone around them.
And there's always this tension between the world they know and these forces that are trying to disrupt it.
Right. Winter, dragons, ancient magic. It's like the old ways are falling apart, making room for something new, something that could be really dangerous.
So the question is, in a world that's changing this much, what price are people willing to pay? What will it cost to survive, to win, to hold on to power?
That's a big one. What will be left when all is said and done?
Before we wrap things up, what's your final takeaway from all of this? What's that one thought that's going to stick with you?
Think about all the people we've met, their dreams, their struggles. Look at the choices they made and what happened because of them. What does their journey tell us about power, about ambition, about holding on to hope, even when things are at their darkest?
Yeah, it really makes you think about what you would do in their shoes.
Absolutely.
One last thought for you all out there. Remember how those direwolf pups were discovered? Alone in the snow. What if we're like those pups, just stumbling into this world, not sure what's going to happen next? What choices will we face as we navigate this world of ice and fire?
That's a great way to put it. We're all on this journey together, in a way.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us. We hope you learned something new and that you'll keep exploring this world with us.
Yeah, keep questioning, keep diving deep. We'll see you next time.